No, Money Pro, I am not late. I see your comment there. I've still got 8:59, so I got a minute. But I saw the Farron is late comment and decided, you know what? What's a minute? Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody. Today is Tuesday, January 6th, the 5th anniversary of the Capitol riot. Doesn't seem like it's been 5 years since that happened, but it has. Obviously, all of those criminals have now been pardoned by Donald Trump. I can't even say that all of them are free to go do whatever now, because a lot of them have ended up back in jail. Some of them have ended up not among the living anymore, due to confrontations that they have had with the police. So, that's unpleasant for them. But yeah, that's a thing. Obviously, probably going to see a lot about the Capitol riot throughout the day. But that's not what I am here to talk about today. I actually have a lot of different stories I want to cover today. Yesterday was a huge blast of a news day. So we want to get through as much as we possibly can. Of course, Tim Walz dropping out of the Minnesota gubernatorial race, Hegseth and his attacks on Mark Kelly, Donald Trump's multiple different admissions about what's actually happening in Venezuela. But first, I want to talk about a meltdown that Donald Trump had yesterday that actually is not related in any way to Venezuela. So yesterday, the Toddler-in-Chief, Donald J. Trump, got on Truth Social, ranting like a lunatic about how mad he is that the media will not repeat his lies. That really gets to him. He works really hard coming up with all of these fake numbers, these fake conspiracies, and the media is not doing a good enough job parroting this demented old geezer's talking points. So he gets on Truth Social and says this: "We have taken in and will soon be receiving more than $600 billion in tariffs. But the fake news media refuses to talk about it because they hate and disrespect our country and want to interfere with the upcoming tariff decision, one of the most important ever of the United States Supreme Court. Because of tariffs, our country is financially and from a national security standpoint far stronger and more respected than ever before. God bless America." Okay, none of that is true. We have not, as Trump said, taken in $600 billion. In fact, for the fiscal year, which came to an end in September, Trump's own Treasury Department said that we'd only brought in, $195 billion in tariffs. And that was actually less than we had brought in the previous fiscal year under President Biden. So even though the tariffs went up, the tariff revenue actually went down year over year. Nowhere near $600 billion. In fact, the Tax Policy Foundation says that we may pull in about $240 billion this fiscal year from the tariffs, but obviously nowhere near that $600 billion mark that Trump is mad that the media is not out there telling people. But honestly, he should be glad the media is not saying that the government brought in $600 billion in tariffs, because the public overwhelmingly knows where that tariff money comes from. It's coming from their wallets. So if Trump wants the media to go out there and say that, hey, we pulled in $600 billion because of tariffs, all that's going to do is remind the public that we got screwed out of $600 billion. So I don't think the public wants to think that. That probably wouldn't bode well for a historically unpopular president for the media to go out there and remind people that he wants them to be screwed over more than they were. So, that's a big gamble for Trump to try to force the media to talk about that. Luckily, of course, they're not saying that. And I say luckily because luckily for him, they're not pushing this completely false number out there. But he is absolutely delusional. I mean, I don't even think this is just him lying like he used to. I think this is pure, actual suffering from delusions because he believes these things. He thinks this is, in fact, reality, when clearly it's not. It's not even close to it. But he believes it. And I'm not talking about the old George Costanza from Seinfeld. It's not a lie if you believe it. I am talking about this man genuinely thinks these are the things that are happening in the country because of his psychological, neurological problems. He cannot differentiate fact from fiction. So that's why he does this, and that's why he gets so pissed off that the media is not reporting the reality that only he can see inside his head. But you know what that $600 billion does line up with? It lines up with how much it would cost for Donald Trump to send $2,000 rebate checks to everybody that would qualify for one of those tariff rebate checks. So perhaps he's not delusional. Maybe he's just pushing that number so that people think there's enough money from the tariffs to pay them back for what they've been paying since April and his so-called Liberation Day. Now, of course, estimates have shown that the average American family is paying upwards of $700 more per month because of the tariffs. Therefore, a $2,000 check doesn't even cover 3 full months of the increase in expenses that the average family has experienced. So you might get some elections so that you have that money in the bank when you go to vote, because he's trying to buy their votes, but it's not going to recoup all your losses. And if he were to do that, of course, the government doesn't have that money. So we're going to have to tap into something else to pay all these people off to vote Republican. I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know if he knows how it's going to work, but by God, it's a thing. Super chat came through here from Ronan Aquila. Says, thank you, Farron, for your righteous anger, keeping me sane since 2015. But once the nightmare is over in 2028, please rest and don't burn your soul out. I don't know. I don't know, man. We'll see. I'm probably going to keep with the righteous anger. But no, hopefully there will come a point where we can chill out to a degree. Maybe not be so angry all the time. Maybe have some more laughs and fun. I miss laughter. I miss fun. No, I kid, of course. This is fun. I still laugh all the time because if you don't, you'll go crazy. So try to keep it sometimes lighthearted when possible. Obviously, not entirely possible all the time, but yeah, it is something something I do try to do. Comment here says, anybody get those 1776 checks yet? Weren't they already on their way? Yeah, it's weird, right? They were supposed to come like a couple days before Christmas. And you would think that if, millions of members of the military were suddenly receiving extra money, that would be in the news, right? Like they would be posting pictures of their checks. But they're not. And of course, just so everybody remembers, that money is money they were already going to get. It was actually part of their housing stipend. Not part of, it was all their housing stipend. Trump just rebranded it as a bonus get. It was actually part of their housing stipend. Not part of, it was all their housing stipend. Trump just rebranded it as a bonus from him. So it was not extra money. It was money they were already owed by the federal government for their housing stipends. Super chat here from Scorpius says, what are your thoughts on Mamdani's, first days in office? I have not paid a bit of attention to any of that. I'm not in New York. And so what Mamdani does or does not do in these first few weeks, I would say, really doesn't concern or affect me. And I do know, obviously, I'm waiting for some people to say like, but it does because he could. I get that part of it, but at the same time, right now, it's a lot of kind of administrative stuff. Nothing too substantial and crazy as far as I know, but also it's not just because I'm not in New York that I haven't been paying attention. I got really burned out on it. And in fact, we had to cut a part out of a segment that I did because I kind of started getting really annoyed that the entire media was like hyper focused on it. And it was just kind of pissing me off. And I realized like I was out of line for doing that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm very glad Mamdani won. I have high hopes for him, and I have high hopes for what it means for, progressives, like true progressives across the country. But I'm not gonna sit and dissect every single thing he does. So, if I were in New York or closer to New York, obviously it would be a lot different. I'm down here in a deep red state. So we've got our own problems to deal with. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. Not to mention, obviously, a lot of national things have happened since Mamdani got sworn in. So I haven't even had time if I wanted to. But again, I don't mean to downplay it. Obviously, this was a historic victory. And I think Mamdani, like I said, I have super high hopes for him. And I really, really want him to succeed and cause, this tidal wave of true progressives to win office. But I think it's a little too early to diagnose it as well. V-Man, always good to see you with a super chat, says, what sickens me about the Greenland talk is the people of Greenland have been working hard for independence for years, building themselves to survive independence, and this MAGA talk will set them back. It will, because now it actually puts Greenland in the situation where they have to depend on Denmark. So Denmark now has more leverage against this territory, and it's a really, really bad situation for them to be in, having to fall back on them, potentially for protection, for, preventing negotiations. It's very unfortunate that this is happening. We're going to move on here to another story, because this one really actually, sorry here. I think, nope, it is this one. I'm losing my mind right now, folks. It's still early. Haven't even finished my coffee yet. But anyway, Donald Trump has revealed that obviously he didn't tell Congress, he didn't tell the Gang of 8 congressional leaders that he was going to go in, overthrow the government of Venezuela, and then, proclaim himself to be the king of it. But he did tell the oil companies. That's right. Donald Trump actually admitted to reporters that he told the oil companies in advance that he was going to go sack Venezuela, arrest their leader, and then effectively just take over the country and, of course, the oil fields. Because that's what this is all about, not to mention, obviously, the distraction from the Epstein files deadline that he blew past on Saturday. But he warned the oil companies in advance. Now, here's what's really interesting about this. There is only one American oil company operating in Venezuela today. That is Chevron. Chevron has been there since, the year 1923. So we're talking about 103 years. Chevron has been in there. They're kind of grandfathered in. No other American oil company is operating in Venezuela. So why bother telling those guys, right? I mean, I can see to a degree that you're going to tell Chevron. Chevron does, of course, have to work with the government of Venezuela. They still probably didn't need to know. Congress definitely did. Chevron probably not. But the other oil companies in this country were given warning. Why? so that they can be ready, so that they can go ahead and start hiring. They can get their staffers, they can get their equipment ready, loaded up, and head on down to Venezuela. Companies that have not been there, companies that have not ever been there, companies that may not even be able to point to Venezuela on a map. Because this was not about drugs, this was about oil. And in fact, if anybody has gone through and read some of the news that came out this morning, Trump actually had a phone call with Joe Scarborough yesterday. Scarborough talked about it this morning, and he told Scarborough that this is about the oil. You know, I said back in 2015 that we should have kept the oil, but we didn't keep the oil. This time we're keeping the oil. He made it clear this was not about drugs. This wasn't about smuggling. This wasn't about any of the charges that Pam Bondi has filed against Maduro. This is about getting all that wonderful, sweet crude oil, of which Venezuela has the largest proven oil reserves on the planet. And also by doing this, Trump likely blew up his entire prosecution, of Maduro. By admitting this, and Joe Scarborough, of course, reporting on it, the lawyer who's representing Maduro has already come out and said, yeah, we're going to go ahead and file a motion to dismiss. So Trump may have screwed the pooch on that by running his big, stupid mouth, because as I've always said, Trump's biggest problem is that he doesn't ever shut up. In most instances for Donald Trump, the best thing to say is nothing. But his ego, this narcissism, forces him to say something. He has to talk to reporters because he has to be in the news, because he likes to see his name. And then every time he does, he says the dumbest crap you've ever heard in your life, and he screws himself over in the process. But he doesn't get that. He can't learn that lesson because the ego prevents him from learning it and admitting that, hey, you made a mistake. Maybe just go shut your mouth and go away. But he won't do that. And that is always something that I am going to find absolutely hilarious, because this guy loves to screw himself over every opportunity he gets. Another thing that Donald Trump admitted on Monday during a conversation with NBC News' Kristen Welker, she asked him, okay, you've said you're going to have several people involved in the running of Venezuela. You've got Pete Hegseth. You've got Marco Rubio. You've got the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Which one of those people is actually going to be running the country? And Trump responded and said, well, which one of those people is actually going to be running the country? And Trump responded and said, well, it's going to be kind of a coalition of them. And he said, JD will be involved as well. And then Welker drilled down to the point. She's like, who will be at the top? Who is going to be the top person running the country of Venezuela? And without hesitation, Donald Trump responded with one word: me. So he admitted to Kristen Welker that he, in fact, is now the leader of Venezuela. He's the guy in charge. He's the one that gets to call the shots. He's the one that gets to, decide which members of the Maduro administration stay, which go, which may go to prison. And you already have, by the way, opposition leader Maria Machado. She came out yesterday and said, like, I wish I would give my Nobel Peace Prize to Donald Trump if I could. So she is out there trying to butter him up so that she might be able to get into a position of power, even after Donald Trump, publicly kind of crapped on her the other day, saying, yeah, she's a nice lady, but she's not tough and the public doesn't like her. But she's still trying to take over. Trump's not going to let anybody take over. He made it clear he's the guy calling the shots. And to the people of Venezuela, I say, that's out of the fire out of the frying pan into the fire at this point, because you guys can see clear as day what he's done to this country. I mean, if you enjoy paying more for literally every single thing you buy, then yeah, you should be celebrating and excited about this because that's what's going to happen. That's what's happened to us here in the United States. Okay. Donald Trump is underwater on every single major issue, including immigration, which is his signature issue. Hell, even the takeover of Venezuela, only 33% of the public says, yes, this was a good idea. The rest of them are like, oh my God, why are we doing this again? So that's what you've got now, Venezuela. Maybe it'll be better than Maduro. Maybe it won't. I mean, I don't know. I genuinely cannot tell you that Trump is going to be a better leader. He may not do some of the abuses that Maduro did, but he'll bring in new abuses instead. You know, you may not have the rampant human rights violations. You may not have the narco terrorists, but you're going to have our oil companies and they're going to rape and pillage, you know, metaphorically, not physically, hopefully, but they're going to steal all your resources. Your whole country's basically going to be strip mined, oil, minerals, all of it, because that's what Trump wants. That's why he's there. And that is why he has now crowned himself the new king, I guess we'll call it, of Venezuela. So we've had a lot of super chats come through here. Let me go back. Want to get to all of these, of course. This one is from Carlos. Thank you so much, by the way. Says, hi, Farron, correct me if I'm wrong, but if tariffs are refunded to importers, won't they be enriched since there's like no way to refund us what we paid? Or do we get some of that somehow? We absolutely do not. And that is an excellent point, by the way. So if the Supreme Court does in fact come out and says, nope, Trump can't do these tariffs, you got to pay all the money back. The companies are the ones who paid it to the government. They pay the import tax. But then they pass it on to us, so they recoup it. So they already got their money back, but the government would have to refund them. And if y'all think that those companies are going to sit out there and say, hey, okay, guess what? We need to go ahead and send everybody their money back. They're absolutely not going to do that. At which point, they're not going to lower their prices either, by the way. We saw that during the period of hyperinflation, you know, after COVID. Some of the prices came down slightly, but none of the prices went back down to what they were pre-COVID. They use this inflation, the tariffs, all of it, as an excuse to keep prices artificially high because we have no anti-price gouging laws here in the United States. So we will continue to get screwed even if the tariffs come off, because that's just what corporate America does. Super chat here from Way Out East says, Dems need to start fighting. Enough of this strongly worded letters nonsense. George Conway has the right attitude. He calls him what he is, a criminal. I love that. I agree. I am always 100% in favor, regardless of the situation, of the Democrats getting a little mean, of the Democrats fighting, of the Democrats doing more than just holding a little press briefing outside the Capitol with, you know, 3 or 4 of us standing behind and saying, we don't like what happened. Thank you. Goodbye. Cool. Nobody likes what happened. That's not good enough for you to just say like, hey, I agree with you guys, right? I mean, this guy. No, you're in positions of power. Do something, anything at this point, other than just run your mouths or send out a memo. Roman numeral super chat says, petition to permanently refer to Pete Hegseth as Full Metal Jackass. I will sign that petition. Another one here says, Farron, as a Brit who has spent at least a month every year for 20 years in the U.S., I sincerely fear that the U.S. is rapidly becoming a rogue nation. You and me both. I really do think with Trump's continued threats, not just against Venezuela, he's now threatening Greenland. He's now threatening Mexico. He's now threatening Cuba. And that's just in the last 3 friggin' days. So, yeah. More is on the way, and it's absolutely horrible. A House GOP member just died. Maybe Dems take House. Oh, is this a new one? Or is this the one from like a couple weeks ago? Hey, and speaking of Dems, you know, potentially retaking the House, Marjorie Taylor Greene is officially no longer a member of Congress as of yesterday. So that's a positive. Um, Can Denmark/Greenland defend itself from a U.S. attack? It would break the NATO agreement, but are other NATO members allowed to protect Greenland? I mean, I would have to, dig through charters and agreements and all that, but I think obviously the U.S. attacking Greenland or trying to take it by force is going to violate everything we've ever signed on to. So I would imagine that a NATO member country being attacked, even if by another NATO member country, the other countries would be able to come to Greenland, Denmark's defense. So I do think that is possible. Another story we got to get to today, obviously, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War, because I think now that is an appropriate title for the Department of Defense. The Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, announced on Monday that he was moving forward with disciplinary actions against Mark Kelly, Democratic senator from Arizona, a retired lieutenant colonel from the Navy. He was a fighter pilot in the Navy. The guy was an astronaut, for God's sake. That's one of the best resumes I think a human being can have. But because he put out a video, a month or so ago, reminding American soldiers that you have the right, you have the moral obligation to defy illegal orders, which of course is in the military code book. So he did nothing wrong, but this administration has accused him of sedition, and now Pete Hegseth is trying to strip him of his rank and, of course, his pension. As a retired member of the United States military, Mark Kelly does, in fact, get his pension payment every single month in perpetuity until he's no longer with us. He earned it. He earned that through his service to our country. And Pete Hegseth got on social media and said, nope, we're going to be doing away with this. I'm going through the process right now to do away with it. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to formally censure you, which now goes into your permanent record. And yes, when you're in the military, the permanent record is a real thing, not just something your mom used to scare you when you were a kid. But that's now a black mark on his record. Now, Marco Rubio went on ABC's This Week on Sunday, and he was actually asked, in between all the Venezuela talk, he was asked, like, hey, by the way, all these attacks on Mark Kelly, Pete Hegseth saying he wants to do this crazy crap, does he have any legal grounds to do that? Marco Rubio, the former lawyer. And Rubio just stuttered and stammered and couldn't give an answer. So the guy who's supposed to know, as the Secretary of State, as a lawyer, the legal basis for doing any of this was like, that's it. Like, that's what they got. So they know they don't have any legal basis for doing any of this. But they're going to do it anyway because they're mad that he and, of course, the 5 other Democrats put out this video, which, again, only reminded members of the military that they have the right, the legal right to defy unlawful orders, which, again, is in the military code books. It's not sedition to say that. It's not treasonous. It's not illegal in any way. It's literally just saying, oh, by the way, don't forget, you guys can do this thing. But for Pete Hegseth, the guy who had been accused, by the way, of running scam charities that were supposed to be helping disabled veterans, but instead were used, the funds were used at like strip joints and bars, he is going to strip a real military hero of everything that he has earned throughout his entire life just because he got his feelings hurt. Had some more super chats come through here. Let's get to these real quick. Let me make sure I find them all. Good heavens. A lot of comments today, folks. I really wish I had more time to go through each and every one of them. Every Dem should stand in midterms for the impeachment of the entire Orange Farts team. I agree. Unfortunately, though, with impeachment, we all do need to realize we can impeach him, sure, in the House. We will not have the numbers in the Senate to remove him. Even if we get some Republican defectors, it ain't going to happen. LaMalfa from California, GOP House member, got in a car crash from Hunter Williams, explaining the Republican representative who passed. So thank you for that. Another super chat here says, I'm sure it doesn't surprise you one bit that a MAGA couple said that they think that Spain was better off under Francisco Franco, one of history's most brutal dictators. Doesn't surprise me. Yeah, that kind of seems on track for MAGA, admiring dictators and, racists and all kinds of horrible human beings. Super chat from D-Man says, I have enjoyed your take on the real world takes. Me personally just want that Trump promise, yet surprise, no, you fall in line or we will make you and take your resources. How's this America's first policy? It's not. And look, that is one of the things that MAGA is having a hard time with right now, because Trump obviously campaigned on America first. He's supposed to be the America first guy. And he's out there not caring one bit about Americans or our problems. In fact, he's telling us our problems are a hoax. We're stupid for thinking that prices went up, even though we can see that prices went up. It's a hoax from the Democrats, and we all fell for it because we're all a bunch of rubes. Lest we forget Epstein files. Yes, of course, as we mentioned earlier in the stream, the Epstein files, this is a big distraction from it, and we cannot allow it to be a distraction from that. So that is something we all need to remember and continue to talk about. One last thing I want to hit on real quick here is that Tim Walz, of course, announced that he was dropping out of the Minnesota gubernatorial race, will not be seeking a third term. All of this has to do with this ongoing BS about the Somalian immigrant childcare scam network they're running in the state of Minnesota, of which, like I've said, there is no evidence to back up. The only evidence, of course, is the video from that man of dubious character, I will refer to him as, and his buddy Dave in the video. And they said they went to a daycare and the daycare wouldn't let them in because they're just two creepy men off the street. And so because of that, obviously it's a fraud. There's no actual children there because we weren't allowed to go in with our video cameras and film strangers' children in a daycare. That's their evidence, folks. I'm not even exaggerating. That is what happened in the damn video. And now Tim Walz drops out of the race. Which honestly is probably for the best because, Minnesota can go red or blue. I hate that though. I mean, Tim Walz is such a wonderful grandfather type figure. Like everybody wants a Tim Walz in their family. Okay. When you show up for a holiday dinner with your family, you're hoping there's somebody there like Tim Walz, this sweet, lovable older guy that he's going to tell some good stories and he's going to be friendly and he's going to support you no matter what you say or do. Like, hey, I'm going to drop out of college and go be a professional, street dancer. He would be like, well, that's great, man. You've always been a good dancer and I'm so glad you're following your dreams. If you need any help from me, you let me know. Like, that's who Tim Walz is. We love the guy. So it sucks that he dropped out. But again, even with this right now fake scandal, it has tainted him to the point where he likely couldn't win. And I think he realizes that. I think he's like, look, I can outlast this. I know this is not a real thing, but if the public perceives it to be a real thing, then the Democrats are going to lose Minnesota, and I'm not going to be the one to let that happen. So this was a good, selfless act by Tim Walz. So I admire that and I respect it. And it's like, damn, dude, now that you're dropping out, I respect you even more because you understand the situation. You're doing the right thing. Even if it costs you what you want the most, you're still willing to do it. My God, just such a good guy, right? But yeah, so that's that. Listen, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. I do encourage you to do that. Obviously, we're going to do these streams every single day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central, my time. You can follow me across social media at Farron Balanced, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Threads, and of course, Blue Sky at Farron Balanced. This has been great. We went way longer than I had thought we would today. Thank you all for the super chats. Thank you all for the amazing comments in the chat. I'm sorry I didn't have time to read through a bunch of them. I just wanted to get as many of those stories out as I could because, again, yesterday, like afternoon, evening, tons of news started coming out. Plenty of great content still coming up for you throughout the rest of the day. So stay tuned for all of that. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I will see you again tomorrow morning.